All right, welcome back to the podcast. Appreciate you finding us. Remember, if you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform. Great pleasure to talk. We got the game of the week in college football up in Tuscaloosa, Saturday night, prime time on CBS. And a man who will be in the building in the press box, part of the Crimson Tide Sports Network, one Chris Stewart. Chris is a very talented broadcaster with the Crimson Tide Sports Network, lead play-by-play guy for the basketball program, baseball program, and does a lot of work on the football side as well. Chris Stewart, welcome in, sir.
Man, Jason, I appreciate it. Really do. Thanks for having me.
And those of you that are going to maybe see this on video, Chris is overlooking a beautiful golf course right behind him. Got the nice, I don't know which hole it is, but it looks very nice up there.
Look, it's more fitting for me. It's Bentbrook Golf Course, which is a great
Yeah.
public facility in Birmingham you're familiar with from the days you lived in Birmingham. I think it had just opened when you were at UAB.
Yeah.
But fittingly, I have the driving range right behind me because I need the practice tee more than I need the course. So that's a fitting proximity for me.
Yep. All right. Well, Chris does a great job as part of the broadcast. I want to talk. We're going to preview the game here. Before we get to that, for all football fans, why is this rivalry? I mean, people think Alabama LSU the last 7 or 8 years have been good, but this rivalry has been a big rivalry for 20, 25 years. I remember
Yeah.
Sean Alexander ran for like 275 yards in Baton Rouge one Saturday night. Why is this
Yeah.
rivalry such a classic rivalry in the SEC?
Well, both of them have been really good, and both of them have been so dominant in the West. And you're right; it does. It really all goes back, and there are those that, and again, I'm trying to make myself sound younger than I am because I remember Coach Bryant and Charlie Mack squaring off, and how good those teams were, and uh, even before those days, it goes back a long, long time, but most notably with television, and it all comes back, really it ties to Nick Saban. Now, not just his tie to Tuscaloosa, but he changed things in Baton Rouge. LSU
Right.
was getting popped on a regular basis until he took over, and of course wins a title there. And it was kind of interesting. You may remember the 2 years that Dennis Franchione was at the University of Alabama. He was approaching some huge popularity himself. Even beat Saban in Baton Rouge, and there was a famous deal where supposedly Saban had made comments about Alabama and where they were headed with the NCAA because Fran was there at that time, and I don't know if there's any truth to it or not, but it was played up by Fran and the Bama side that Saban made some pretty derogatory statements. Bama pops them pretty bad. It's like 30-7, a surprise,
Right.
especially in that time. And afterwards, there's a famous picture of Fran shaking hands and pointing his finger at Coach Saban. Now, we've all joked if we'd known then what we know now, we wish Saban had clocked him. But it was at the time, I mean, it put
I
Fran through
remember
the
that.
stratosphere in popularity.
Yep.
And there were some good games after that. But then, of course, when Nick comes to Tuscaloosa and becomes the guy, LSU understandably was upset, hated it. But they've gone back and forth, and it's been special on the field, but there's been some intense stuff off the field as well.
And the great point you make is both teams have been really, really good the last 12, 13 years with the different coach. Obviously LSU's had a couple different coaches, but they've won a national championship with Les Miles and Ed Orgeron during that period, during this whole run as well. So
Yeah.
to me, outside of, I mean, I think that this may be the preeminent big time matchup rivalry in the SEC because Alabama Georgia doesn't get to play enough, unfortunately, to be able to see
Yeah.
that as often. So to me, this has probably been the premier rivalry matchup of heavyweight teams in the last 15 years.
Yeah. And look, you can call it taking a shot if you want to, but I stand by the statement. Um, it proves what LSU can be.
Right.
Okay. It proves what LSU can be because Alabama has won its national. Now, I will say from the Bama perspective, going back to the arrival of Bear Bryant as the head coach in Tuscaloosa, every coach has had at least one 10-win season. Every coach, Mike Shula, Mike DuBose, Franchione, everybody had at least one 10-win season.
Bill
Okay.
Curry, yeah, everybody, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. They all had at least one 10-win season. At LSU, though, while Alabama's won national championships with Bear Bryant, Gene Stallings, and Nick Saban, okay, so that's a grand total of 13 between those three guys, excuse
Right.
me. Stallings won 1, Bryant was 6, Saban was 6. Those are pretty good coaches. LSU's won 3, yes, with Saban, but they even won them with Les Miles and Ed Orgeron.
Right.
Not exactly
Hall of Famers.
Bryant, not exactly Hall of Famers. Okay. And those rings shine just as bright as the others. I get that, but nobody's gonna go Bear Bryant, Ed Orgeron when they're talking great coaches, or even Les Miles.
Right.
So there's, I think both have a lot to be proud of in what they've accomplished, but LSU, in the last 20 years to win it with, I guess it is 20 years now, to win it with 3 different coaches,
Yeah.
2 of which really were not exactly stellar. That's saying a lot.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to ask you before we get to the game. I want to ask you a question that just popped up in my head and something that just broke yesterday. And you have a very good sense of this too, being where you're located and your interactions with Coach Saban over the years. The whole Dabo Sweeney coaches, the question you saw about the coaches, and I'm not going to ask you that about Coach Saban, but just that thought process of just the expectations versus what Dabo talked about, appreciation, how difficult fans can sometimes get those confused, and just enjoy being how great your program is, whether it's Clemson, Alabama, whatever your favorite program that's been dominant over the years. How much do we sometimes lose as fans? We're so into it every single day. The appreciation of, man, we got a great college football program or a team that we root for.
Yeah, look, Dabo's a guy that we're the same age. We have some same friends from his high school days.
He went to high school in Birmingham. Yes,
he did at Pelham, and we have. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that we're tight, but we have some close connections that I have tremendous respect for him and for what he's done. He is, however, a guy who most of his influence, if there's one guy that influenced him the most in coaching, and I may be wrong, he may disagree, but it seems to be that it was Gene Stallings.
Right.
Tremendous
who he played for at Alabama.
And coached for.
Yeah.
But he also could be a little combative. Okay.
Right.
And I'm not saying that what the things that Coach Stallings would say were wrong. I'm not saying the things that Dabo said were inaccurate. But there are some times that you may be better served in not saying them.
Right.
And those are 2 guys that ain't afraid to fight. Good men, but they're not afraid to fight. And if they feel like they've been challenged, they're going to fight back, which is among their strengths. But it can also put them in a position like the one he's in now, where it may not be the best look. But I'll say this: Dabo's far more about substance than style, and there's not a better character guy from everything that I know than him. So he's not afraid to take on that fight. But in the PR battle and the world we live in today, didn't exactly make it the easiest on himself in that regard.
Sure, and you know this. A team like Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, they lose one game, the fan base thinks the sky's falling. I mean, it's just
forget losing a game, Jason. I used to get when I did the sidelines, I'd get texts from my wife going, "What's wrong with us?" I said, "Baby, we're up 10-0. Yeah, but we should have scored a touchdown on that last drive." I said, "Well, honey, there's still like 8 minutes to go in the first quarter, right?" "Yeah, but we still should have." I mean, she embodies the Alabama fan base. I live with it. I don't have to, I don't have to go and see it on the chat rooms. I got it in my ear.
Yeah.
So I understand what that's like, but that doesn't mean they're always right. They're incredibly passionate. But that doesn't mean they're always right.
All right, let's get to the game. Saturday
Yeah.
night, obviously, you got LSU coming in 6-2, Alabama 7-1. LSU seemed to has righted the ship a little bit. Obviously, offensively, we know they are very talented. Jaden Daniels. Talk about the matchup between that LSU offense. You got a mobile quarterback, a guy who's been
Yeah.
in the second year, versus a Bama defense that's been really good throughout. There really hasn't been any ups and downs. They've been above average to great all year long.
Yeah, and I think one of the keys is making sure you play your assignments. And I know you can say that anytime, but especially when you got a guy like Daniels and how good he is and the way he hurt Alabama last year. I
Right.
think Bama's better in the secondary this year. I think they're able to defend the back half a lot better than they could, the back from the backside a lot better. I think they're really starting to play well, and they need to. The bigger thing is the offense right
Yep.
now and being able, if God forbid it becomes a shootout, do you have enough bullets in
Chamber.
the barrel
Yep.
to get it done in the chamber?
Yep.
And so you can tell how much I shoot. I don't even know how to make the reference right. But anyway, it's a team that does, I think, seem to have a lot more going its way offensively. But the defense is what they're going to lean on, in a big way. And I don't think enough gets said about this, but Alabama's special teams are really good in terms of the kickers.
Riker.
Um, yeah, Kool-Aid McKinstry's got to be more consistent he's had a couple of muffs that have resulted in short fields and opportunities for the other side, and
Yep.
he's better than that. He can be a true weapon in the return game, but I think he's got to get his confidence back to make sure that's a positive and not a negative. But
And
man, in
Will
terms of Reichard and the punter, as good as you'll find anywhere, really, really good, and they've got to continue to be that because this could be I know Vegas is saying it, but it could be a
field goal
3-point
game.
game, and what you do with your punt game as well as your place kicker will be huge in that regard.
And Riker just became the all-time leading scorer in the SEC, which is 100 years of that conference, however long. I mean, that's a hell of an accomplishment. A kid who's from Birmingham himself too. So, all right, let's talk about Jalen Milroe a little bit.
Yeah.
Up and down year. He started off. He struggled in the Texas game. Obviously, they lost the Texas game. To me, the key to his season, maybe his career, was what happened to him the next week down here in Tampa. You were here. He didn't play it down.
Yeah.
He didn't play. He didn't pout about it. It sounds like from all indications, he just stuck his head down, went back to work. We saw what happened in the Alabama game at USF. They struggled, but they won. And then after that game, Coach Saban went back and said, Milroe's our guy moving forward. How do you think that little week of inactivity for Milroe helped him and basically has maybe jump-started their season?
Yeah, it's how we managed it that was so big, Jason, because Coach said it flat out. He didn't take the initial benching very well. He did pout just a little bit, which is not his personality. He's a great kid. He's a great teammate. But we all have our moments of weakness, and he had one. Nothing. I don't think it was anything bad, anything major, but it was enough in a time of uncertainty that it allowed the other two guys to get an opportunity. And thankfully for him, they weren't very good. Thankful for Alabama, they were still good enough to get it done against USF and to grow and get better. And they've improved. This is a kid that the locker room really likes.
Yep.
It's very reminiscent thus far. Now we're a long way from the finish line on this, so please don't think I'm jumping the gun. But I said it before it ever happened that he ever got back in, that it had the potential to be similar, I think, to 2014 when Jake Coker was the starter, didn't look great, lost the job for a week or two, and then got it back and became the real heart and soul. He made some key passes, but he just was a tough guy that the locker room loved. Now, Jalen's a much different type of athlete, and frankly, this team needs him more than 2014 needed Jake Coker to be electric.
Right.
He managed all of that well and did make some big plays at big times. But the main thing was he didn't hurt you and got you in the right spot and got it to real playmakers. Alabama's got some playmakers, but Jalen may be the best athlete on that team. And so for him to play with confidence and to play at the level he's capable of will go a long way towards determining just how good this team can be by season's end, regardless of what that looks like, ring or no ring.
And this Saturday night, again, you're playing LSU. He's really shown the propensity to be able to throw the deep ball really well.
Yeah.
LSU has struggled in the secondary this year, this year so far. So that's a part of the game to really look for the play action or the broken play kind of situation where he's scrambling and then hits it over the top kind of play. So something to be really key here. Two more things I'll get you out of here. Another key matchup in this game is not on the field. It's in the coaching box. Tommy Rees and Brian Kelly, how much they know each other. Rees used to be OC. Rees used to be the OC for Brian Kelly at Notre Dame. Talk to me how you think that matchup is. Obviously, they both had a bye week. Do you think there will be some wrinkles formationally from Tommy Rees? Obviously Brian Kelly knows how Rees thinks offensively to some degree. How do you think that little matchup is going to play out?
I think there is some validity to that. I will say this. The athletes that both of them are working with are so much better collectively than the athletes that they had to work with when they were on the same sideline.
Right.
So I think, I know what you'd like to do and all, but how do you do it with these RPMs? When it's revved up, what do you like to do now? And Nick Saban's real clear to point out too, and accurately so. When a new coordinator comes in, offense or defense, they're running what we want run. They're running our system. They're not, there are some wrinkles that they may bring, but you're running our system. And I think that helps keep it a little bit, it's not like you automatically know what the other guy's going to do. And look, man, the scouting is so advanced right now. Right. I don't know how much, there's 1,000 analysts on both sides. You've got it broken down a million ways to Sunday, or since it's not the NFL, college, a million ways to Saturday or Thursday night if you got the SEC or the ESPN package. So what you do, I don't think is a big secret anymore. Who just does it better? And hopefully Alabama is going to be able to do it better than the Tigers at Bryant-Denny on Saturday at 6:45.
And it will be interesting to see if there's any trickery in this game. Obviously, last year we all remember Brian Kelly went for 2 at the end to win the game. Yeah. They made it. Will there be whether it's a fake punt, trick play, 2-point conversion kind of? There's always a little twist and turn in this game, and with so much on the line, because this is basically this is a elimination game most likely, because obviously if LSU wins, they'll have the head-to-head over Alabama at this point. But and obviously if Alabama wins, LSU will be out. So tons to play for. Tell the fans if they're not watching on TV, where can they listen to the Alabama broadcast?
I will say out of state, especially, the easiest way to do is to go to the Varsity app. It's a free app. Learfield puts all of their properties and their schools through that Varsity app, and it's a free download. You can go to the Alabama football page or go to Crimson Tide Sports Network as you search within that app, and everything that we do on the network is available there. Also rolltide.com, the official website of Alabama Athletics. But that Varsity app is great because you can grab your phone, you've got your radio with you wherever you go, and I'm sure things are that way with you for your platform as well. It's amazing how we're able to do it. You and I in the old days doing an interview like this, we'd had to bring in satellite trucks and things like that. And here we are with a Wi-Fi connection and
looking over the driving range.
Me, and you got the same thing in your studio. It makes it a lot of fun for what we do. That's for sure.
No doubt. Well, before I get Chad, I got to get Chris is the play-by-play guy for the Crimson Tide basketball program as well, and they're getting ready to tip off here in another week or so. Talk about I was just looking at the schedule. You got a pretty good non-conference schedule this next 5 weeks or so. At Ohio State, hosting Purdue, Creighton, Arizona. Give me a couple nuggets about the basketball program and Coach Oates.
Yeah, well, I will say the Ohio State deal, if I'm not mistaken, that one's actually going to be in Destin. It's a tournament down there.
Okay.
So, and I've forgotten because I'm not going to be able to do that game. I've got the Iron Bowl the following day, but I am going to go and do that Friday game, Alabama and Ohio State, which will be fun down in
Yep.
that part of Florida. But it's a great schedule. Nate does it on purpose because he wants his team challenged and ready. Uh, they played a challenging schedule incredibly well, good enough to be the number one seed in the tournament for the
Yep.
first time in school history. Had the tough game against what turned out to be a great San Diego State team and lost a close one. But this year, with a roster that has, I think, 4 guys back maybe from last year total,
Mm-hmm.
has rebuilt it in the portal and had already done so in recruiting. The freshmen and JUCO players they'd signed were going to be in a pretty good spot, but really was able to make them a legit top 20 team with what they did in the transfer portal. And the guy's amazing. He lost all 3 assistants that had been with him all previous 4 years in Tuscaloosa. He
Right.
lost those guys to Division I head coaching jobs.
Right.
He joked, he goes, "Man, I'm walking around the office. There ain't nobody in there. I had to hire a staff just so I'd have somebody to talk to." And in the midst of hiring a staff, hired or found all those players in the portal
Yep.
and finished off recruiting. So for them to be in that conversation speaks to what he's done. 2 SEC titles in the regular season and tournament crowns in the last 3 years, but also the job that he's done, not resting on the laurels. They're a preseason number 5 pick in the SEC, but the last 2 times they've been the preseason number 5 pick, they won the league championship. So we'll hope that's a good omen again.
And the other part of this equation that people undervalue is the difficulty that Nate Oates and that program has to, when you're looking across the hall and you got the legend next door down the hall having to live up to that. And he's done an unbelievable job being right there with those guys.
Jason, the toughest thing Alabama basketball deals with is that they're in the same conference with Kentucky and on the same campus as Alabama football.
Yeah, right.
Because Alabama basketball, in terms of total all-time SEC wins, is second only to Kentucky. Now, look, Kentucky's a different category. It's so far ahead of everybody that you're foolish and embarrassing yourself if you don't make that caveat. But the reality is, when you look at everybody else, Bama doesn't have a Final Four on their resume, and with that, obviously, they don't have a national championship. But just in terms of SEC wins, historically, Alabama's got a great reputation. But to your point, it's not new with Nate Oates being there with Nick Saban. C.M. Newton won 3 consecutive SEC titles for the first time in Alabama basketball history in the mid-'70s.
Right.
But it was only SEC titles, while Bear Bryant was in the midst of winning,
right.
I think his 3rd and 4th, about to be 5th and 6th national championships, bookending what happened with those 3 straight only SEC basketball titles for C.M. Newton and the Tide.
No, that's a great point. And again, he and Nate Oates embraces that. He loves it. I think his personality is the type where he wants all the smoke if he can get it. And he's done a great job building that program. And that is a national. They're no longer just a regional basketball program. They are a national program.
He's got a great attitude about it. He loves college football, for one thing. He embraces what he's able to do because of the visibility of Nick Saban's football program.
Right.
He made a great statement that's been kind of a catchphrase all over campus throughout the athletic department. Why we got to just be a football school? Why can't we just be a championship school? And that's truly what they've become when you look at what's happening in the other sports under Greg Byrne as the athletic director.
Well, Chris Stewart, enjoy the game on Saturday night. You will do a great job. Enjoy the hoops. You're going to be calling a lot of 3-pointers. I know that a lot of threes getting fired from Nate Oates and the boys down there. So enjoy the basketball season as well. We'll check in as we get towards March. I appreciate the time, my friend.
Jason, appreciate you, buddy. Thanks so much.
Have a great call. Bye-bye.
Thank you.